5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the White Wave Views broadcast, the WWVB, coming to you live from Auckland, New Zealand, by the Pakeha Queen. That's me. Happy New Year, everybody. I thought I'd come on before midnight struck for about half an hour to give you a rundown of what is happening with the Pakeha movement that has been initiated. I hope you had a great Christmas and that you caught up with friends and family on Christmas Day. I certainly did. I had some of my family here for lunch and it was a really lovely time. And I reflected on what Christmas is about, that Christmas is about birthing and bringing things into the world that are going to be good and true and right for all of us. So the Pakeha movement, I'm going to try and explain it tonight in a kind of a brief and formal way. We're still putting a lot of paperwork together that we can give to people to give you a broad picture of what we're all about. I have a website that I created. It's just a free one, a very humble website that has info and ideas, and I'll put that in the comments below after this video. So a little bit about myself. I live in Auckland and I'm a singer-songwriter and an author. I have unpublished books and I've got some recordings of songs on the internet. I'm a horticulturalist, a florist, and I'm also recently in the last few years become a political activist as a Christian, as a Wayan Christian, which is a Protestant spirit-filled ministry worker, if you like. So I'm 62 years old. I'm from Tokoroa, which is the heart of the Timberlands. My grandfather was part of the crew that started up the paper machines there in the early 50s, and they came out from England with my mum and her family. And on my father's side, my family reaches back to 1840, where William and Maria Kennard came on the ship Magnet to Otago, to a place they called Hawkesbury Bay, which is now called Waikouaiti. So I have a real passion for the ancestry in this country, and being a Christian, I really honour the early missionaries and the great works that they did. And I don't believe that the story about New Zealand has been told well enough, and we want to tell the good things about it that happened in our history. We are having a culture war here in New Zealand and indeed worldwide, and I've done a lot of lives in the last year about the worldwide war on Christianity, the West, the culture, the British Empire, what happened in the past and all that sort of thing. And there seems to be like gangs of people from different places in the world that are really coming down on the white man, and we feel it. We know it's happening, and we haven't said a lot about it, but what I'm saying to the white people of New Zealand, the New Zealand Europeans, or the Pakeha, whatever you want to call yourself, is that we need to mobilise. We need to forge unity amongst each other and find a common denominator, and the reason for that is because we have to adapt to the multicultural society that has evolved in this country. We can't go back to what it was, but we can unite and have memories of those and make sure that we preserve those traditions and values and the integrity and the honesty and the hard-working culture that developed this nation. We're having arguments about the treaty in history, and it's really quite ugly. You know, we can all have a perspective and an opinion, a view on something in history, but when it's knocking on the door of legislation and it wants to get into law and it starts dictating to everybody in the workplace and schools and society that they must think a certain way, and that everybody needs to come into the circle of a certain understanding about history that is the Maori worldview. So there's been a lot of pressure on people, and out of that there's been a lot of concerns. Unfortunately, the Pakeha voice has been suppressed, and part of the reason for that is that the philosophy is that in a multicultural society, you must respect everybody's beliefs equally. Okay, so you're being governed by a different set of people in a government that was set up by the British Westminster. So it has a construct. But it's really not about the system, it's about the people that are sitting in the seats. And as Pakeha, I don't believe that our voice and our presence and our view and opinion has had a place. It hasn't had a place. That might seem strange to some people, but when you listen to what Pakeha people are actually saying about the concerns we have in our country, we have the type of concerns that probably wouldn't really be totally understood by other people, especially foreigners and immigrants or even Maori people. If they've been quite entrenched in the Maori culture and grew up like that, they wouldn't really know what it's like to be a Pakeha that doesn't have Maori in their family, hasn't been on maraes, doesn't really understand. They're just doing their culture and that's that, and we're all used to that here in New Zealand. We grew up with it, and it's really everybody just sort of mucked in together, to be honest. And we knew that there was people living rurally, but there was Pakeha people living rurally as well. It was just we were living the treaty when I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. We were living the treaty, and we all did everything together, and there was a oneness, and I think we got it right after domestic and foreign wars. We had 4 golden decades, and anybody over 50 would agree with me that our society has drastically changed, and it's changed for the worse for so many reasons. If one thing happens and we don't deal with it, and another one comes along, and it's like another boulder on the pile, and we're just watching on. We're seeing our culture being melted away. We are putting up with persecution and feeling like we're the pariahs, and these programs of decolonisation going on. They want Pakeha to come in and be stripped of the whiteness of their mind, and admit things and say sorry and come into line with it. This all sounds like a Nazi, mad doctor program, mind control program, sitting around in a circle. No, this is like, it's a form of witchcraft, when I look at it, because I'm astute and I've been trained in this area. We need deliverance in this country. People are strayed away from God, and I'm not religious. I'm not affiliated with the church, but I've been into plenty of them for quite a few decades since I was a child. And that happened because I saw a vision of Jesus, not because my family were going to church. I just had an experience, and I went on a journey. And because I moved around a lot with my work, I went to all sorts of different churches, and I had a problem there because I was outspoken and I had a spiritual gift, and they just couldn't handle it, and I was sort of deemed a bit of a troublemaker. And so I've always been kind of an activist, and I'm always wanting the truth to come out, and I've always wanted to be free to speak. I want to be free to speak. I want to have my voice heard. And I don't believe it is. There's no representation for the Pakeha people. We don't have a leadership. That's why we need a council. And we're not having our voice heard because all the other races in New Zealand are all corporatised. They are. The Maoris are very corporatised. They've got 4,000 organisations. They're ticking along like a well-oiled clock. They keep having to say they're suppressed, though, to keep it going. But we're the ones that have actually suppressed, and we can prove it. I mean, we're not even getting employed anymore out there. I mean, that's easy to see. Facts and evidence. With the Pakeha movement, the whole initiative is about God and country. It's not about religion, because Christianity is the basis of New Zealand. And it's not a religion, it's a faith, and it's a way of life. And it's a way of life that worked, and we created that oneness. We did, we got it right. We all had the golden ticket. But a tiny few rebels didn't like it, because these rebels from way back in our history have continued through with their agenda, and they got a lot stronger in the 70s when they had the Maori Land March. They achieved a lot with that land march, and what we're going to do is we're going to follow in the footsteps of the Maori people. We're going to use the same phrases. We're going to have the same plight. Okay, preservation of culture, political advocacy, fostering unity amongst our people, our race. We are a race. Pakeha is a special sacred name. Whatever the Maoris have said it means, it doesn't, because they get a lot of their own words wrong. So don't listen to them about definitions. The early Maori chiefs in the hapu there, they loved us. It was Christmas every day for them. They loved us, and we gave them love as well, freely teaching them everything of the world and the knowledge. And the missionaries were very brave. I mean, they were talking about Jesus to people that could have just easily killed them and eaten them. And they had a fearlessness, and there is a fearlessness that comes with an anointed ministry of God. I have that fearlessness. I do get some death threats, because anything Pakeha is just considered white supremacist, racist anyway. But you've got to break through that barrier, and you've got to use what we have to be cunning about it, to work with it all. Instead of tearing it down, we've got to raise a standard and work with it. We've got to be paradoxical. We've got to meet the juncture. We've got to do exactly the same, say the same thing. We're doing this because of this. You can't call us racist, because that's exactly what you're doing and saying. We're just copying. That's the idea and the philosophy and the concept. Okay, it's a proposal to the New Zealand European people. The Pakeha, whether you're native or whether you've come from Europe last year, we're all part and parcel of a race. And in New Zealand, the native white people that have been here for generations upon generations, from the Victorian era, we're native now. But the Maori people don't want to share that nativity with us. They've separated out. So there's been like a breaking. There's not only been breaches of the treaty. The Crown's breached the treaty on Pakeha too. We just haven't had a chance or a tribunal. We haven't had the ability to sift through the archives and find all those little faults that the Crown made. They took land off us too. They did. They shifted us around. We were displaced. We were shunted into cities. I live in Auckland. We were shunted into Auckland for safety, because the Maori rebels were attacking us. All across the Taranaki, white farmers were attacked and slaughtered, and the stock was cooked. There's a lot of graphic, horrible details that, anybody could go into. But apparently we're not allowed to talk about that, because we're only allowed to talk about the richness and the goodness of culture. So everybody gets to display that and enjoy that celebration of their culture here. They're funded, it's promoted, they're set up corporately. They have a plethora of organisations, assistance, services, and everything, except us. That's why the Pakeha need to have an ethnic council. We need to register as a charitable, non-profit, cultural organisation. It's not to dominate anybody. We just want to be part of it. If you're going to have the diversity and inclusivity, you have to accept that we're going to do that. Okay, whatever we do, you have to accept it. Okay, because you're doing it already. We're just following the pattern and adapting. Okay, we have to have our ethnic acknowledgement as the other race of the treaty. The Pakeha, it's in all the documents. It's significant that us white New Zealanders embrace the title of Pakeha, because we can use it legally. It's all we're going to have left soon. Okay, it has to be acknowledged as a legal status. So the whole idea of the Pakeha movement is we've got a step-by-step proposal and a plan to follow. Okay, if you want to come on board and support it, or just follow along, and sort of support or at least learn what we're doing and consider the proposal. We need to have some kind of a plan. Everybody's complaining and worrying and concerned, and our culture's going down the drain, and foreigners are running our country. All our colonial institutes have been hijacked and taken over and infiltrated by people who are our enemy. They're working together because they have a common denominator, and that's a hate for white Christians, because they know that we're the power and we have the numbers. Now, the idea is this, that the Pakeha movement is going to follow a step. We're going to start with following Whina Cooper and the 1975 Land March. And that started with 50 people up north. Excuse me, I'll just have a drink. Whina Cooper, she toured through the Marais with her slogan, "Not one more acre." Okay, it was a legitimate cry that everybody kind of supported, and they made a big event of it. But it was an occasion where the country was ambushed. You didn't have time to think. You had to support it. If you didn't, you were called racist. And people thought it was a legitimate, maybe, the Maori shouldn't sell any more land, keep some for themselves. So, but that's turned into what? That's turned into a monster that nobody ever thought would be allowed to grow, from an acorn to an oak, right in front of our faces. For 50 years, us Pakeha have been saying, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. We haven't had a voice in any of those Waitangi hearings. We haven't challenged or been the defendant. What is a tribunal if there's only two parties, the adjudicator and the complainer? Where has our defence been? Challenging these accusations that have come out of the Waitangi Tribunal, coated with settlements and apologies. I don't agree with that, do you? I don't agree. We don't even know what's been going on behind closed doors, these secret proceedings, and all these extra things set up for them, when in the treaty it actually says we have the same rights and duties. Haven't the Maori been rebelling against the Crown and Pakeha for the last 50 years? Going totally against the principles of the treaty, where they gave allegiance to the Crown, that they weren't supposed to rebel, or they weren't supposed to have a king or monarchy or anything. That's another reason why I'm starting a monarchy for Pakeha. It's because the Maoris have got one. And the New Zealand War was so many thousands of souls got perished because of the King Tanga movement. That's rebelling against the Crown, which was forbidden. It was a principle. They kept fighting and they kept doing it, and they were warned by the chiefs that they had their land confiscated. They should have never got any confiscated land back. We don't agree with them having confiscated land back and money packages. We question it all. So part of the Pakeha movement is to challenge this fraud, fake and fiction, to preserve our culture, what we've got left of it, what can hang on to it, and celebrate that. Tell the goodness of colonialism, okay, which it was. These narratives that have been spread around have got to be exposed by re-educating people, and we're going to have an education package. We're working together with other people, and we're going to have a new treaty workshop to deprogram people. They want Pakeha to go in there and be deprogrammed from the whiteness of their mind and the coloniser mind. Well, we want to make sure that there's no Pakeha traitors anymore. We want to get them all back. Those Pakeha people that are fronting these Maori enterprises to strip us of the whiteness of our mind is just a straight-out Marxist Nazi program. It's absolute madness. And this is Pakeha people that are doing it. They're calling all the Pakeha in to get on board with this absolute madness. To become self-loathing, white-guilted, happy to destroy your own heritage. Traitors. This is what we've got going on here. But you see, they had to get to the Pakeha people to get them on their side, to get the numbers. And then they had to make it delicious for any European people with a smidgen of Maori or Polynesian um, to jump on board that you can identify as a Maori. So all of a sudden you've got, the population of Maori jumping from 500,000 to 1,000,000. With all these European people deciding they're going to be indigenous and claim stuff. So the detrimental impact of this is just far and wide. And out of all those apologies, it's like, oh, all of a sudden the Pakeha are just, we're thieves and we're born racist and privileged. This privilege thing, I'd like to know where it is, because I'd like to grab some of that privilege, because what I'm feeling now in life, okay, is that we are the ones that are marginalised and cancelled and shut up. We're the ones that are bombarded and attacked. I mean, the page that I had, the Pakeha protest on Facebook, I had 3,000, I worked hard to get 3,000 followers on that. And I got spam reported by Maori people who just couldn't stand what I was saying. They don't want us to have a voice because they know we're intelligent. One of them said, oh, woe betide us if the Pakeha unite and connect. It's true, they're scared of us. Because they know that we're pissed off. Right? They know we are. And the treaty chiefs warned them. They said, don't get on the bad side of the Pakeha. If those Maori people just read the Kohimarama conference records, they would get a lot of enlightenment about what the treaty chiefs warned about and what they wanted and why they made their decisions. They were the ones that shaped and framed everything. They did. And they're still doing it, but there's rebellious people there that have got those official positions. So I believe that the Parliament should rid itself of Te Pāti Māori. I don't think they're going to. I don't think we can scratch them away. I think we can only raise the standard. I'm not going to start a Pakeha party because I don't want to be a politician. I'm the queen that's initiating everything. I've got the umbrella initiative and, the vision and the ideas and the mandate and the anointing from God, and I've got like all these components and the training that I've had and what I've studied and documents I've written, books I've written, songs I've recorded. It's all like one big package coming into this ministry, and I'm trying to offload it and overflow my cup that I've been filled up with, but at the same time try and get people to support me and help shape and frame our movement that is going to go into the future with our children and our grandchildren, because we're losing it at the moment. We're losing our space and our place, and we have a rightful legal space, and we need to have that security. We need to have that authority, because things are going haywire really badly, and we're the ones that got it right. We proved it way back, right? And that's being blasphemed and defamed, because they reckon all this new stuff, all this DEI coming in is the better way, and it's progressive and all of that, but it hasn't worked. We've had a 50-year taste of tribalism, and we've had a 20-year taste of DEI, and that's excluded us. You see, to bring in all these other antichrist things, you've got to remove Christianity. To remove Christianity, you've got to suppress the Christians. You've got to target them if they're concerned. You just got to call them a label and shut down that discussion. And then you've got to bring in some law to shut them up even more and keep them confined, and you're not going to give them a microphone or have them on the mainstream TV. You're going to push the other narrative and agenda and keep them away, even cancel them out if they want to hire a hall, which is what Julian Batchelor did of Stop Co-Governance. He just couldn't have a quiet meeting without having bullies and thugs at the door. Yeah, that's what we get if we try and get together as Pakeha. We're the ones that are actually being marginalised. Okay? We're the ones that are suffering charity being steered away from us and our kids because apparently we don't need it, we're privileged. I mean, the defamation of our race has got to exponential levels that we're going to work on taking these bastards to court. We're sick and tired of your defamation and shaming and blaming and blaspheming the faith. There used to be a law in this country against blaspheming Christianity. Most people were Christians, and we had a standard consensus. And that's the reason why the treaty chiefs loved us. That's why they signed the treaty. And the interest was shared interest was tikanga Christianity. They warned everybody not to go back to the old ways, the ancestral worship, and also not to mix the languages, because they were having a problem with Maori and English being mixed together in conversation and what have you, in writings, and it was just a big mess. And they said, this has got to be a rule that you don't mix the languages. So we got that back again. So why doesn't the government understand the real principles of our history and what the treaty chiefs said? They have gone against so much of what was stipulated in the resolutions that they came to. We're having a reoccurrence and a repetition of history, where we've got a resurgence of the very things that they were having a problem with back in 1860, when they reflected on 20 years after the treaty. And they could see the issues, and they wanted to iron them all out, and they did. And they made resolutions. The 5 major ones have resurfaced now, and the reason why they have is because of the Waitangi Tribunal, and the rebels were given authority. They were given an unhinged, unchecked, plainly unfit to hold authority to tamper with the treaty, to fiddle with the archives and historical records, and start decolonisation programs. Decolonising the minds of people, decolonising history. So they're rewriting and revising, reinterpreting. They back-translated the treaty. The treaty was a mess is a mess in the Waitangi Tribunal. They started using a draft version that wasn't even the final English treaty that was translated into Te Reo. Okay, and when they realised that we shouldn't really be using that, they got Hugh Kaparu to back-translate the Te Reo into another form of English. Now, where was the real, final, true, original English treaty? Well, it actually had gone missing. So, in the late 1980s, Hugh Kaparu back-translated. I mean, this is like playing a record backwards. This is the devil's tricks. They back-translated Te Reo into another form of English. And that's the one that they use, and I just think it's flawed, it's fake, and it's fiction, and I think it's corrupt, and it's just totally wrong. It's putting the whole country off track, and it's indoctrinated generations of children that have grown up to be very rebellious, angry, nasty, hateful, racist adults who are running teaching programs and they can't even understand the treaty. They don't even know what the 3 articles mean. How could they be teaching anything? We have allowed education to flow in this country that is full of misinformation and just totally leaves the facts out. It leaves the facts out. That's as bad as telling a lie, to deliberately leave the truth out. And we're calling that out, and we're coming for you, people who have defamed and shamed and blamed the colonising people, our ancestors, okay, blaspheming our faith, trying to scrape our culture away, saying that even sitting in a park gives you colonial trauma. Get out of here with your... That is just totally dehumanising, Pakeha. We have listened to your dehumanising rhetoric for decades now, and we're fed up with it, and we're going to do something about it, and we don't really care what you think about it. I want Pakeha people to embrace the title Pakeha, because it's part of our facetious combat. Alright? It doesn't mean white pig. They've dragged it through the mud. It had an honourable meaning. The treaty chiefs loved us. They honoured us. And the treaty chiefs that became Christians, the righteous confederate, united tribes, united under God, that was independent under God, and they didn't want to have anything to do with the warring tribes. They became prosperous in the late 1830s, borrowing British ships, trading their goods to Australia under the mission station flag with their own little cross thing. It's not about nation sovereignty. It was about trading and shipping. Those treaty chiefs, they took the opportunity, they harnessed it, and they got prosperous. The rest of the rebel buggers, they kept fighting, and they didn't learn from the Pakeha. They attacked the Pakeha, and they came against the crown. They didn't prosper, and they lost their land and everything, and those buggers are the ones that are complaining now. Okay, the rebels got into power. The rebels got the money. They got the tribunal. And we have a problem with that. You see, if we don't contest these things, then we're just consenting. You know, we have a right to know what's been going on, and we want to investigate it as the other race of the Treaty Pakeha. Well, that's important because we are documented as the two races of the treaty. We have the same rights and we have interests, okay? And the sovereignty is with the monarchy and with the supreme law-making government, okay? Now, the Maori party is not part of the Pakeha government. It shouldn't be part of it. They made a mistake. They've made consecutive mistakes. And we want a tribunal. We've got grievances past and present. We have to have the same rights. We're going to follow in the same track as the Maori, and we're going to go for what they've got. Because according to Article 3 of the treaty, if we're going to be tiriti-centred, the Maoris don't argue that the third article says that we have the same rights. We also have duties. Okay? If you're going to have these rights and money, your duty is not to rebel against the sovereign crown and say you're the sovereign ones and you own the country. You know, you can't receive assistance and funding from the United Nations UNDRIP, United Nations Rights of Indigenous Peoples, if you're going to use that funding to revolt. I mean, you're misappropriating funding and everything. You're given authority and you're just totally bastardizing it. You know, you're abusing what you've been given, and still your people are still suffering and in the prisons and beating each other up and killing their babies. And we see it all. I mean, let's get real here. But we don't want to worry about your problems. We're worrying about fostering unity amongst Pakeha and the white New Zealanders. We're being attacked all around the world. We're the bloody minority. We're only 8% of the world now. We used to be 35. You know, who is being culled and, you know, watered down with eugenics? Whina Cooper was a eugenic supporter. That's why she told her people to go to the settler hall dances and breed with the Pakeha. That's how we get rid of them. Okay, it's to breed them out and breed them with us, but still call your kids Maori. See, they're shrewd and cunning. They put her up as a poster granny, and everybody thought, oh, she's lovely, you know, and all of that, and she for her people and that. No, they were planning and scheming in the background with other Maori mafia people, the elitists, and they are after the sovereignty and the power and the control, and they've been getting it, and we've been watching it thinking, what the hell is going on with our country? You know, it's like we're just not even having a part to play in that. The government doesn't listen to us. We don't have a corporate entity where we can correspond or interface with them. We can't interface with anybody. We're just individual families. And they're keeping us weak like that. This is orchestrated, this is planned this way. Okay, so we've got to have our own plan. So aside all of that complaints about what we've got, we need to follow a plan of solution. And it's going to take time, and I'm going to put the website that I put together in the comments below, and you can skim through that and have a look. That'll give you an idea of what we're all about and what we're planning to do. What we want to do is have a colonial mission march, similar to the Maori Land March in 1975. Okay, where, and I've already had a photo taken with my grandson. You know the iconic photo of Whina Cooper and her grandchild starting the march on the gravel road up north. Well, that was photographed by Michael Tabati, who was a journalist for the New Zealand Herald at the time. Well, I was thinking a few months ago, wouldn't it be cool if I could get a photo of me with my grandson? That's sort of like a similarity, you know, a parody of it. And I thought that'd be cool. We could do sort of like a spoof, not really a spoof, but an analogy, doing a similar thing, but for the same purpose, but by Pakeha. You know, showing that hey, we need things too, and we want our voices heard as well. So anyway, a friend that I had met recently online and then met a couple of times, she said, oh, that guy Michael Tabati, he lives in the complex that I live in. It's a retirement village. And I'm like, yeah, really? She said, yeah, I could probably get him to take a photo of you and your grandson. And I'm like, really? And anyway, it was all set up, and lo and behold, and this was a real sign for me, I managed to get photographs by Michael Tuberty, the same photographer that photographed the iconic photo of Bena Cooper and her grandchild. And I'm going to use those images as part of our movement as well. There's a lot of components I'm putting in here. I'm very creative, and the reason why I'm theatrical is because I was brought up with theatre, and that's just my personality, It's just the way it is. So don't worry about that. It's all, the world's a stage, like I said before. So we do have a plan, and it's on the website. We're going to follow in the same footsteps. We're going to put a lot of paperwork together, and we're going to tour through some main trunkline churches. I've got to set that all that up and correspond with them. And we're going to stop at these main churches, and we're going to do a bit of a performance. We're going to bring a prophetic message, leave an educational pack, like the truth about the treaty sort of thing. And we're going to challenge the church to even though they're all diverse and they're all arguing about doctrine and deed, okay, there is one common factor because of these threats that we have against Christianity, that all churches of Christianity can unite in, and that's uniting people in baptism. Okay, that's what founded this nation, and that's what delivers people. So if you're worried about Islam, they're taking over, they want Sharia law, or we've just got to baptise them and add the New Testament to the Quran and convert them, okay? But we've got to plan and prepare for that. The church needs edifying and equipping. They're all weak and watery, and they don't know what they're doing. They've been infiltrated, and they're compromising and sitting on the fence. It's an absolute mess. They've been stoning the prophets, kicking them out the back door for decades. So I'm going to be coming along with a prophetic message, and if the church isn't going to accept it, then you just go on to the next one, and you just put down that such and such church, rejected the... Because in the old days, you used to have a lot of people coming through churches that would be speakers or, some prophet, or they wanted to bring a message of warning or whatever. It was quite a common, popular thing back when I was growing up. But these days, it's like nobody wants to let you speak in their church. They've got a lot of cancellation in the churches as well. They like to suppress you, especially if you're outspoken like me. And I have a prophetic mantle. I wrote a book about my experience in the churches, and I tell you what, it was just like you just wouldn't believe it, eh? But and that's all culminated in what I'm doing today. My entire life's walk with God has culminated in this. It's my ministry now. I'm going to be the Pakeha Queen, and if you don't like it, too bad. It's just you've got to accept its diversity and inclusivity. You wanted it, okay? You're going to get it. Now, us Pakeha have been called racist, privileged, white supremacists long enough, and we're sick and tired of it. Because what we're going to start doing now, you're not going to know what to call us, because we've never done this before. We've never tribed up. There's never been a Pakeha or anything that we've come together just exclusively as white people. It's just not the done thing. It's not our culture. But we're going to do it now because you want us to adapt to multiculturalism. Well, that's the way we're going to do it. Okay, so we've got a plan. We've got to forge this plan. We've got a step-by-step process to follow. And I want people to come on board that have got skills in writing. Or if you've got skills to create a website, we want a really fantastic website, because we want an engine room for everybody else that's aligned with us, that for God and country, okay, can be promoted from one umbrella website, a movement. Okay, now as we grow in membership, then somebody might want to start a Pakeha party. And by 2027, if Te Pāti Māori haven't been booted out of the government as an absolute abomination to the whole system, then we're going to be demanding reserved seats as Pakeha. We have the same rights as the other race of the treaty. Okay, and we're going to bring our case forward in our petition and have all our ducks in a row and all our paperwork all put together. And we want other people to help us shape and frame how we're going to present that. So this is like a well-organised event. It's going to be very well organised. and prepared, because that's the key. You've got to prepare and you've got to plan. Okay, and it's got a lot of components to this if we want it to work. But it should work because it worked for the Maori people. So is the government going to give us the same reception as they did the Maori people in 1975, 50 years ago? Are they going to give us the same rights according to Article 3 of the treaty? Are they going to honour our interests, our property even? Because some of our private property is under threat now with tribalism. Is the government going to protect Article 2 of our treasures, property, interests, possessions, heritage, all of those things? Is the government going to always honour Article 1 and maintain that the Maori ceded sovereignty? And that they need to censor all of this talk about the fact that they didn't cede sovereignty and that the Maori version means something else. This has caused a lot of confusion. And I challenge the Crown and say, you've allowed this to grow. Now you've got a crisis. Now you've got a problem. We're coming to you saying, look, we've had 50 years of trying to get our voice heard and nobody's listening to us because our voices are being silenced because it doesn't fit with this new way of tribalism and immigration and DEI. You know, you're just a handbrake for all of that. That's how we're getting treated. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be a lady with a pram and I'm going to be coming barging through. And I'm sticking my neck out for people, okay, because I'm sick and tired of being called a white privileged. You know, I've never owned any land or a house. You know, I'm a singer, I need new music gear. Where's my funding, my creative funding? I mean, if I had a little bit of Maori, I'd probably get, you know, loan for a house or, you know, some free workshops and whatever is going. They seem to be applying and registering for a plethora of things all the time. It all gets done for them. They've got special assistants and all these privileges. These are extra rights over and above us. But those rights have given them positions that they're plainly unfit to hold because they've just wrecked stuff. And they've actually completely defamed our character and teaching their children to hate us. And I believe when the immigrants come in here, they've set the benchmark in the bar, separated themselves out. We're Maori, we're decolonising. And some of these immigrants come from countries that, like Africa, they're decolonising as well. You know, the Indians in America, they're decolonising. You know, every time I see a post from American Indians on Facebook, you know, they might have a beautiful painting. I love their paintings. This one particular Indian man does beautiful paintings. And he puts a poem with it. And every time you read that poem, there's always bad white men somewhere in there. They weave it in. They cannot help themselves. They're all on the bandwagon of anti-colonials and anti-Christian and anti-white because we're concerned about the homosexuality, the Islamic takeover, and tribalism, witchcraft. Well, boo-hoo. I mean, can't you just accept the fact that we're Christians and all those things are threats to us and they're enemy to God, the creator of the world? Can't you understand that we have the Bible and the scriptures and everything to go by, and we have a covenant, and that we're quoting God? It's not our theory. Can't you understand that in New Zealand there was a revival of massive proportions? Those chiefs just fell for God like you wouldn't believe because they experienced the Spirit of God. That was the spirituality that came upon the Maori people. Before that, they just had, like, you know, tribal witchcraft and demonology and, you know, worshipping things, worshipping creation, like pantheism. They believed in different gods, and it just all got corrected when Christianity came in, and they realised it themselves, because you can't force Christianity onto people. You have to make a personal decision. That's the whole concept of it. Okay, and they decided to, and I just don't think these Maori pagans today who are antichrist, they don't like the fact that we did such a great job of evangelizing an entire race of savages. You know? And then only after 150 years, these people are making films here in Hollywood and they're becoming doctors and lawyers and politicians. I mean, there's nothing racist about the history of Pakeha in this country, and I challenge anybody to come forward with any fact and evidence, okay, to say that the whole thing was just based on some kind of trickery and control and evil. I mean, to call God's work and his people evil is pretty freaking low as far as I'm concerned. That's borderline unforgivable sin. The Bible talks about the unpardonable sin. And I'll tell you what that is, because Jesus ain't going to hang on the cross for you again. Okay, if you're going to credit the devil for God's work, that's just like, you know, if you're not going to believe the Holy Spirit swept through New Zealand and changed the whole landscape and the whole society, and it was great for everybody. Yes, there were struggles, but there were struggles on both sides, okay, equally. You can't just all have it one way. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And I'm sick and tired of the money extortion and the wealth transfer into corrupt iwis. We want that money back, and we're also going to be trying to get our Christian land back too. That was gifted by the chiefs. There was land that Pakeha were given, and we had our own treaties. Before the Treaty of Waitangi was signed, the Pakeha people had been living here for a couple of 100 years, and they had their own land that the chiefs had given them, and they were sharing and everything. Okay, the warring tribes were the problem, and they still are. These warring tribes, they're the ones that have got all the tribunal and everything. And it's wrong. It should be righteous Maori that are working all of that. And you wouldn't have half the problems because they're under God and they understand that they're accountable and responsible, and they're contending for the faith. The whole Queen Victoria thing was contending for the faith. And us Victorians, like I'm one of them, from the Victorian era, 1840, that's where I reach back to. And that's my piece of land down there, territory. Why can't we have clanship again? We want 100 clans, and we want every Pakeha to be able to identify and link with a clan organisation. There's a lot of money in the coffers. They seem to have a bottomless pit to start organisations all the time. Every week the Maoris have got a new one. Every week they're opening some centre. You know, I'm looking for a little space to have a Pakeha meeting, and it's like, it's slim pickings, I can tell you. It's not easy. Nobody's opening the door for us. It would be racist for us to come together, apparently. But we're going to break through that barrier, and the Pakeha movement is going to be a fearless, ruthless, but caring voice for our people first, because we need to edify and equip ourselves before we can outreach to these other people. So we actually need to form some kind of a union. Okay, and the idea I've got is a Pakeha council under a Pakeha movement, you know, Pakeha cultural centres, where we can help our youth as well, not be caught up in all this tribalism and all these threats, you know, especially if they're Christian youth, or they believe in traditional Christian values of life, okay, and that God is the creator, and that Jesus did die for us, and we need to honour that covenant, because that was the covenant that came first. The baptism came first, and then the Kohimarama decisions about how we're going to go forward was another type of covenant. So those two covenants need to be honoured, and we're going to make sure that people get educated about that. Okay, so if you're interested in helping this movement advance, or you've got some special project or initiative going on, or you've got some special knowledge, we would like to have you as a writer for our blogs and also for our online treaty workshop. Okay, because we're interested in educational unity. Okay, we want to have some defence for these accusational narratives that have been pumped into the heads of everybody about us and our future. It's totally wrong. It's fake, false, and it's fiction. Okay, there's a lot of fabrication, and I'm just the kind of person that likes to have the truth out there, and I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of it and I'm not afraid to speak out and stand up for everybody else. So you can stand behind me. I'll be the queen on the chessboard. And you know what? Once I have this theatrical coronation, I'm going to have a photographic shoot done. So it's all about imaging. Okay, this is what we've got to adapt to. We've got to have some kind of a brand, some kind of an image, some kind of leadership. I'm just going to start it. I mean, the council can just be a bunch of blokes. In fact, most of my followers are men between the age of 50 and 70, which is kind of good for me in a way because I'm single. Looking for a man of the wilderness. And no, not really looking. God might bring some along one day, but no, I'm just saying that the demographics, the 50 to 70-year-old white males in this country are the ones that are being targeted as being old dinosaurs, and they don't want their voices heard, but they're the ones, okay, that are our sentinels. They're our sentinels. And they're the ones that have something to protect. The memory of what life used to be like in New Zealand is what is going to connect the Pakeha people. How we remember being one with the Maori and they were friends with us. We were breeding with them and having children and stuff. There's no racism in there. And all of a sudden this Waitangi Tribunal, the land march happens and everything got twisted and turned upside down. And it's just been a roller coaster ever since. And we want to help find a solution, and that's my proposal to the European New Zealanders, is that you follow me and you get to know what we're all about. And I'm happy to have Zooms with people as well, so all you need to do is email me, and I'll put that in the comments below. Just give me an email and say, hey, I'd like to have a bit chat with you, or a Zoom or something like that, and I'm happy to talk to people one-on-one, because I need a representative in every city in the North Island to begin with. I'm in Auckland, and I'm looking for people in Auckland who are prepared to come on board and help shape and frame this movement. And look, it's just going to be grown by the people, because as a queen, right, what a queen does is she serves the people. So the people come to the queen and say, hey, look, we've got this problem, or we need to do this, we need to do that. And the queen sits there and she thinks, okay, she gets the vision and all of that, because the queen is a seer as well, and gets the download from God and puts it all together and comes up with an idea, a good idea. And then she takes that to the council and say, hey, let's come up with, you can maybe put the puzzle together from there. So the queen bee is the one that sort of like activates, and I'm kind of like that. It's not that I want to be famous or think I'm something special, but I do believe I'm part of the royal household of God, and he's cool with it. And this is just how it's spearheaded too for me, and I believe I can get things done. And I've got a special wand that I can wave. I've got a special wand. So I want to tell my Pakeha people that are concerned, there is hope. Be encouraged. The pendulum is swinging the other way, and there's a lot of people out there that have done some good work towards getting some solidarity, some sanity and stability back to our country, and we can put the brakes on these terrible locomotives that are taking people down dark roads, and we can see how this is affecting our youth as well. And there's just generations of people that are so confused about who they are, the direction they should be going in life. They're uncertain about the future because so many different things are happening all at once. We don't know what's going to happen next. Our trust is gone for the health system. Our trust is lost with police, the government. It's like a barrage of pressure. And we just need to pull ourselves together, and we need to come together as a think tank, okay, and start brainstorming. Okay, I've got a plan and a proposal, so I'm hoping that people will learn what that is and give me your feedback and see how you can help with your skills and resources and ideas, and what you would like from, like if you did really have a queen, what would you want the queen to do? What do the Pakeha people want to see happen? If they were able to have somebody that could be their spokesperson and get things done, what are those things that you would want that service to do if it was serving you as a member? So that's a good thing to think about. I'm going to end this now because it's nearly been an hour, and I wish everybody a happy new year, and go and do your thing for the next 12 minutes. I'll get off the phone so I can prepare for the midnight screen as well. It's been nice to talk to you. Make sure you like the page and share this video to any like-minded people, and just keep following and I'll make some more lives and I'll explain more as I go along. Okay, love you. Mwah. Bye.